Hey guys, so I'm doing a bit of a tutorial on how to build a constant diesel submarine in Stormworks. I know they don't make them IRL or anything, but I think it's a very fun and challenging build. So I'm just building a rig here. I'm not actually going to be building the full submarine because it takes forever. But I'm just going to show how the engine works. So for this example, we'll use a medium. Pretty simple little thing. So you take your medium engine, get it there, and then we need to hook up the coolant. Pretty much just be a little... I'm like lagging really bad, I'm aware of that. Trying to figure out what's causing that in a bit. But I should still be able to record as long as you guys are seeing at least enough FPS to know what's going on. That's such a stupid little you know what? I'm actually just gonna get a radiator and hook it up there. This is not like we're making a real vehicle and we're not running it for very long, so it doesn't matter if we just put a little radiator here. Okay, so there's our coolant taken care of. Then our exhaust and air is what we'll be managing, and then our fuel is the same as always. So let's just hook up the fuel real quick. Actually, we can do that. Let's just do that, and then tank. A large fluid tank. I think. Yep, that's hooked up, I think. I just want to check. Yeah, it is. Okay, so now we've got our fuel, our heat, and then the exhaust is the next thing we'll do. So first thing we'll do is combine these. I wouldn't recommend combining them if you're going for a large engine. You'll have two exhaust apparatuses because you want this to load and unload really quickly. And so you'd probably do two, but we're just going to do one for both. So for the exhaust, it's a little bit easier than the air because the exhaust can pump out for most of the time while you're underwater. You can only use these standard tanks to do this stuff. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. So our exhaust, and make sure you color these when you're building a boat. It's very, very important you color these. Because I built a boat and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working and I was hooking up the wrong tanks. So color your exhausts orange and your airs blue or some variation of that, so you know that you've got the right ones. Okay. Then like that. Then like that. Like that. And then we're going to go to our selector tool. Go to these and make them empty. So there, we got that right. Now we're going to grab our pipe T's. So we're hooking it initially to these empty tanks, right? And then as it runs down this chain of tanks, we want it to be pressurized. So we're going to cut 3 out of each section here, because it needs to be pumped, the exhaust. Because the higher pressure we get at the end of all this, the pumps also act as flow valves, making sure it doesn't ever flow in reverse. So now it's flowing out at a very high pressure, which is extremely necessary for submarines, because the higher the outgoing exhaust pressure, the lower you can go without having to worry about your exhaust. because your exhaust will still empty underwater as long as your internal pressure going out is greater than the pressure of the water around it. So then we would have this valve is not part of the submarine. Normally, you go straight from this to the exhaust, but because this is a rig, I want to simulate diving below the depth that you can pump it out at. Okay, so then after that we have our port. Okay, so that's our exhaust. It's a pretty simple system. Nothing crazy. And then we get tanks to do for our air, and this is a little bit more complicated. So again, blue tanks for air, orange for exhaust. And you want about a 1-to-1 air to exhaust. Now, sometimes, it depends on what you want for the submarine. For me, I go 60-40 air to exhaust, because I think that you spend a lot of your time not fully dived, but just rather shallow. Meaning, you need more air than you do exhaust, because your exhaust can go out when you're shallow. And so, I usually do... in this example, I've got probably a bit too much air compared to the exhaust, but it is whatever. So we will start here. Start drawing our line out like that. And then here comes our first piece of equipment after this pipe angle. So we need a flow valve, a variable valve here. That will be our air consumption valve. And that's very important, because your engine doesn't need 100% of the air you can give it, because with these tanks, you will literally be giving it 100%. You know how you're always like trying, in the simple tooltips, you're always trying to figure out how to get it to go 100, but it's like always almost there, but it's never fully there. Well, if you put tanks on these, it'll go all the way, and it will just eat the air and not even use it to boost itself any further. And so, it's actually really beneficial to avoid burning all that extra air using the flow valve to adjust your consumption. And then you can adjust the consumption to be like, if you want to dive for a long time and you don't want to, if you want to dive for a while, you would turn it down, and the engine would run at a lower RPS and with a little bit less power, but you would eat less air. And so it's kind of like throttling down, but without, because throttling down is not good with these. Throttling down with the diesel submarine, constant diesel, eats a little bit more air, because sometimes it depends on how you have it hooked up. When I do it, I have the clutch rigged to the same throttle, and the clutch, disengaging that, makes the engine run at a really high RPS and just burn through the air. And the fuel too. So now, we've got the air tanks, and these will all be hooked up in sequence like this, right? So, you see how it's very important that the air travels from the intake through the tanks and then to the engine. You can't have it like air to the engine and then a T-piece going off to all the tanks. I mean, maybe you can, but it's like a little less. It's a little worse than that. So then you'd get a pump, and we will have to pump this in too. And there's a lot of ways to pump this in, but a really efficient way would be to have something like this. Okay, so we do that, and then we have our so we need filters for these. Just checking, make sure it's still going. Yeah, it's still recording. Alright. And then we do our water and our impurity bleed off. That's going to be another filter. So then we do... So you see I've got 3 setups that intake air, because you don't want your pipes getting bogged down. So you got 3 setups to intake the air and then fill the tanks, and then only 1 line actually going to the engine, because it only needs 1. And then we get a, we'll do like this. And because the main thing that's coming out of the impurity line is going to be water, you want to pump it. and then we want to pump stuff into this, probably twice. And then to simulate going underwater, I'm going to put a on and off valve. But this is, again, actually this is part of a necessary thing. You do want the on and off valve. This is a good thing to have, because you should either, there's two options. You have a button that says breathe on the surface, or you have a, if the altitude is less than certain, shut all the valves and stop pumping the air, because you don't want this running the whole time. It's just wasting power and stuff. And if there's a really big issue that if you get too deep to push the water back out the exhaust line here, it can be pretty troublesome for you. Sometimes, depending on your engine setup, it can hurt your engine pretty good. Alright, so it allows water, allows diesel, allows jet fuel, does not allow air. All these exhaust lines will not allow the air to go through them, because we want all the air we can get going into these. And these will not allow anything but air. Okay, so we've got that. And really the only thing we're siphoning between is air and water, but I just like to do all the other options, just, to feel like it's been done fully, overkill. So we've got these, and then we get our ports. I actually like to use intakes, but it is whatever, And of course, you would have way more, like on this. You might have like 5 or 6 ports here doing the exhaust off that, and 5 or 6 ports on each of these intakes. I mean, I don't know how much you actually need, but that's what I do, and it also looks good to have like these little ports running up and down the submarine deck. Okay, so now we get down to the power side of things, and this is just going to power a generator, which we're going to use to charge the battery for all the pumps. Why did I say that? I meant battery. Okay, so we got our battery, and this is our basic setup, pretty much. So then we get our starter and everything, so we need some buttons and some dials. Yeah. This is starter, and we need toggles. This is with 2 toggles. This would be pumps on and dive. So let's label this. So this is start, pumps, and below. Okay, so below water valves will go to these things here. Now, of course, this valve on the exhaust does not exist in the normal submarine. You want the exhaust always open with a flow valve on it, so that it's always trying to push water out. I mean, exhaust out, even if it can't, because most of the time it can. Even if it's only a little bit, it can usually get a tiny bit out at a time. It's always worth it to have it open. See, I'm hooking this all up here. So all of my pumps are turning on when I push this button here, and that's just kind of cleaning everything out. And then we do starter. Starter goes to here, and then throttle. And then we need some dials to read up on this. So this will be exhaust, air, and RPS. So for the exhaust, we'll just get a sample at the end, or actually somewhere like right. Really what you would do is you'd add all these up, but I'm just taking a sample at the end. And then for the air, I'll take a sample anywhere, because the air is all equal. Actually, I didn't check. Yeah, the air is all equal. All the tanks are. So they'll fill at the same rate, whereas the exhaust will fill towards this side, primarily. And then fuel. Okay, so then we just need to hook up the electricity. But as you're watching this, you're probably starting to grasp the rigorous setup that is these constant diesel engines. But if you do get it to work, you can get something near 10 minutes dive time and 1 minute breathe. That's really, really good for this. It takes a lot of work and they're really complicated when it gets down to the plumbing. And you have to do it pretty, you have to consider all of the different flows and everything, because if the pressure gets all sorts of screwed up in these, it will freak out and it will not like it. And it can get really messy sometimes. Okay, so is the controls powered? Yeah, they are. Okay, let's spawn this and see if I forgot something. In theory, what we should be able to do here. So we've got our air is full right now. Fuel. Oh, that's what I forgot. Go to all of these, make them empty. Because I'm like, you shouldn't spawn full. You should have to fill them for the first time. Alright. Here we go. Now our setup is ready. So, what we do is turn on the power. So you see, exhaust is 0, RPS is 0, fuel's at, air is empty. So, first thing we do is we would push the pumps and open the blow water valves, and our air is filling up now. Right? And then turn off the pumps for say, so we're now diving below the water. So that's why I turned that off. Now we throttle up, we push start. Oh, I didn't hook up the throttle. Freaking idiot. Alright, we'll do that again. But we're getting there. We're really close now. So, power on, throttle up, blow water pumps. So now, this is on the surface. We're breathing out of these. Right? It's filling up our air with actual air. And then, we're now dived below the water. We've turned off the pumps and sealed the air valves. Then we start it. Oop. So this is RPS. It's not handling that generator very well. I think I might have some. Is these? Oh yeah, these act like a flow valve sometimes. So, thing to do. The way we've got it hooked up here might actually have some issues. See, in my submarine, I did something a little bit different. I put the pumps there, but this will make them all fill equally, and then what you're supposed to do is then pump it here after all the tanks. So we will do that real quick, because it's when the pump's off, it's blocking the flow and causing the engine to have issues. So let's do this real quick. Alright, like that. And then, of course, pumps goes to these. power goes to these. Alright, let's do this. So now we've got our setup a little bit better. Oh, we didn't. So right now we're on the surface, and oh, yeah, that. This valve here has to have a lever too. I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? What have I forgotten? And I forgot the air consumption valve. This is a very important valve. This is when you go underwater, this is your new throttle lever. The air consumption. Your throttle should stay on full once you go down, and then you use the air consumption to maneuver once you're below. So we just open the air oh, I pushed the wrong button. Dang it. I'm just gonna, while I'm in here, I'm just gonna check, make sure it's all powered. Yes, it is. Okay, so what we do is we push power on, throttle up, open valves here. We're filling the air. Fill it to about 70. And then we seal that. Now we're below the water. Air consumption on. Usually you might not even have it that far on. So how it moved there, it's now filling the engine. Then I just push start. There it goes. Now it's eating the air and filling the exhaust. RPS is really high right now. You see that? And there's no air coming in. We've sealed those valves. You can see it's piling up the exhaust. And this can run. Look at that. I mean, just look at how long that's running. That'll run for a really long time, right? And then all we have to do is then surface again. And now we're filling all this and emptying all the exhaust. We're filling it really high now. And we go down again. And we barely even burn through the air. And our fuel, of course, is doing fine. That's pretty much how a diesel submarine works, and they work really well if you get them worked out right. I mean, yeah, just look at that. Look at that. I mean, we're losing like 3, 2, 1, 0. I mean, it's like 1 every second, and then it fills at a rate. It fills 3 times faster than it empties because we have 3 intakes here. 3 separate incomings that fill these tanks here. And see, we could be on the surface most of the time, and this exhaust would be emptying out every here and there. See, but you notice, like, it's trading air. Air goes to exhaust, and then exhaust goes off the boat once we open the valves again. So we're opening these valves, but we're not pumping anything. So even though I've opened the valves, it won't run unless we're pumping. So then I push the pumps. There goes all the exhaust that we've been building up over a period of time. And look at, that's one fluid port can put all that out. Come here, bird. Stop walking on the floor. You're weird, bird. And so now it's completely drained out that exhaust. We can now turn this off. And now we got 307. You can fill it up to 703 on the air. That's like, oh, that's like dive and never have to come up. And you can always hear that nice sound of the diesel rather than the stupid jet engines. You don't have to hear jet engines, and you can have the diesel, and you don't have to use motors that you only get a few minutes to dive on. This is the best way to dive. Turn off the pumps, blow the water valves, and look, now we're never ever running out. That's air consumption all the way up. Then if you need to go for even longer, turn it to half, and you notice how we're still at 20 RPS. We're just consuming it in half speed. Bird, what is your problem? What is your problem? Calm down. Parrots are crazy little things. Anyway, that is my diesel engine. So thank you all for watching, and hopefully this helped you. If you need any more help with diesel submarines, just comment in this video or contact me on Discord, and I can help you out. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys.